Hey guys, in this week's Casually Criterion episode, we are going to review Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters. However, before we do that, we're going to be talking about the premiere of Gen V, Chris's trip to Fantastic Fest, and what all he saw. So join us!
Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and joining me as always is Mike. I just got back from Fantastic Fest. I'm too tired to come up with something crazy. How are you doing today, Mike? I haven't seen you or talked to you in what feels like years, decades even.
Yeah, it's only been a mere 6 days, I believe.
Yeah.
But for you, I imagine time feels different. But yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing well. I haven't just got back from some crazy marathon of movies where I keep weird hours and have weird schedules, but, I'm doing all right.
Well, next year you'll know all about it. At least that's what I'm hoping for me and you. Also with us is Justin. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking. I'm jealous of your movie-going experience, and maybe we can all do it together next year, but I feel like we said that last year too, and it didn't end up
Well, this year it
happening,
snuck up on me. I was in the middle of living my life doing stuff, and then Chris is like, gotta get ready for Fantastic Fest. And I was like, oh, I guess it's here.
Well, your job also. I think that was the main reason. I think you were thinking about it until you got a new job and couldn't take vacation.
Yep. Not for a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing with Justin, kind of, I think. I don't know what his vacation situation is, but...
it's not as luxurious and fancy-free as my previous job, so it is harder. It would have been impossible anyways, even if it hadn't snuck up, but we can plan better for next year, I think.
September, beginning of October, end of September, beginning of October. Just mark it off on your calendars, guys.
All right.
Yeah. There's a music festival that is the same weekend as Fantastic Fest and has been. And I wanted to go to it this year, but I ended up not being able to do that as well. So that's one reason why I'm always like iffy on Fantastic Fest, because it falls on the same weekend.
You can always do a second half badge. I'm sure everybody's thrilled to hear about this, but there's actually a second half badge that's about like half the price, and you can still see quite a few movies in the last 4 days. And in fact, you kind of miss the crowds because it's the first weekend that they have all the premieres and stuff like that. So you kind of miss a little bit of the crowds, and you're just kind of there with all the other fans. Is kind of the way I feel about it.
Yeah.
So
cool. Well, I'm sure we'll talk more about it in depth in a minute.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so if this is your first time listening, this is a Casually Criterion episode, which we like to do every other episode, where we review a film from the Criterion Collection that was voted on by the listeners via our Twitter page. I still refuse to call it X.
Good.
So before we get into the main review, we'll be doing our usual News on the March, where we talk about what we've been watching, what we've been doing. You got a little taste of it earlier with Chris's Fantastic Fest stories, more to come. But anyway, then we'll move into the main event, which is our Casually Criterion review for Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters, spine number 432.
That's right. As Mike said, the film was chosen by listeners via our Twitter/X page. Sorry, Mike, I'm going to do it just to avoid confusion.
Ugh.
I know. You can follow us there at Casual Cinecast. That's the best place to follow us. That's where we post the polls. The only place we post the poll. So if you want to vote, you got to follow us there. You can also send us messages on that account. You can email us at casualcinemedia@gmail.com. If you have any questions about the movies you want us to answer, if you have any poll topics you want to suggest, anything like that. And then, of course, if you haven't done so already, you like the show, go onto whatever platform you listen to podcasts on, give us a thumbs up, give us a positive review, give us a 10-star rating, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Do it, and do it to the max.
Yeah. Unless it's the negative max, and then don't do it at all. You could just email us and tell us you don't like us.
The negative max is also the minimum.
Yeah, that's true.
The minimum that you could do is give us the maximum.
And certainly you don't get this from any other podcast, this kind of debate. So, it's definitely worth
of whether we want good reviews or bad reviews.
Yeah,
Or
I don't want
minimum or
to.
maximum.
I'm not going to co-sign that. I feel like you could probably get that somewhere else. Too.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, let's start news on the march. Much to discuss.
Okay, let's go.
Let's do it.
News on the march!
Here we go. The first thing on the docket, Gen V, just premiered recently this week. It premiered with 3 episodes, just like its, what do you call it? It's not predecessor, but what do you...
Sister show?
There you go.
Flagship
Sister
show?
Flagship show. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. It's the Gen V is a spinoff of The Boys, all right? And they do the same thing with the releasing of their episodes. They release 3 at the beginning of the season and then 1 a week after that, which I think is a really great release method, and I wish other people would do that.
Agreed.
But that's not really relevant. So, first, Justin, what is your relationship with The Boys, and how do you feel about Gen V so far?
Sure. Yeah, I've been a big fan of The Boys. I think you convinced me to watch it on this podcast many years ago, and I've enjoyed it ever since. It's fun. It's, you know, a fun takedown of capitalism and having fun with this world of, like, what if superheroes were a commodity that really existed and they were controlled by a corporation and profited off of, and what would that look like? So I have a lot of fun in this world that they're creating, and so I was excited about a spinoff. You know, I'm just happy to spend like more time in this world, even though, you know, I was maybe just a little bit less interested because I think it like didn't really have, as far as I know, like have many characters from The Boys in it.
Right.
But still, like, I'm gonna watch it, and I did, and so far, I have only watched 1 of the 3 episodes. I guess that's why I'm going first, just to kind of, I guess, set up what I know. That way, you guys don't spoil anything for me. But yeah, based on this first episode, it seems tonally very consistent with The Boys. You know, I think they're doing their sort of classic, like, how do we surprise you and shock you with violence in the first episode sort of thing.
Right.
They've kept that signature going. So I don't know. I think if you like The Boys, I don't see what's not to like about this one so far, except that you just have to get to know all new characters and get invested with their stories. And I guess if you can't do that, then maybe it's not for you. But so far, I've enjoyed it. I thought the main character was really interesting, and I think already I'm rooting for her and on her side. And yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't feel that much different from The Boys, except that it's just none of the main characters that we're following. Although we do see them, we do see like some cameos from characters for The Boys, at least within the first episode. I'm sure there's more to come, but I don't know. I guess I don't have much to say that I haven't already said about The Boys. Every time a new season's come out, we've talked about it. It's violent. It's fun. It's silly.
Yeah. It's a good satire.
Yeah. But that's where I'm at on it. Enjoyed it. I can't wait to watch more. I just didn't have time to get through the other 3. I'm on record as not being able to binge things, so there was no way I was gonna sit down and watch all 3 episodes in one night or anything like that, or really close together. So yeah. Chris, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. It's I'm pretty similar to you. I think it takes place in a high school. It feels a little bit more.
Is it high school or college?
It's a college.
College.
Okay. Takes place in a school.
It's God you.
And it feels a little bit more WB, like the creator's roots, which is fine. And I think the thing that's different about this show that I kind of miss so far, and maybe I won't at the, once we're done with the season or whatever, is the character of Huey, and who's the other guy? The guy that, like, Butcher, isn't that his name?
Butcher.
Yes.
Yeah. These people that are not superpowered, that are seeing, superpowers all over the place, and how can they react to all these people being superpowered? Everybody's superpowered at this university, and so there's kind of there's a little something missing, or at least dynamic that is from The Boys that's not in this one. There is a fish out of water story from the main character. She's comes from, this is spoilers for the first episode, but like she comes from like a home. She doesn't have parents anymore, and so she has to make it, otherwise she's going to, and so she is a fish out of water. She's not used to, she doesn't even have a phone, so she's not used to this kind of world. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's, gross out humor, violent and silly, and I'll see what we get as we go forward. I'm kind of on the fence right now. I certainly did not dislike watching the first 2 episodes, but I'm at the, does this add anything? Should I just be watching The Boys is kind of my thought, which is fine. I don't mind that. But Mike, what did you think?
Yeah, so as Justin mentioned, I've been an outspoken, I would say, fan of The Boys since season 1.
Yeah.
I think it's a good show. I get nervous every time it gets another season because I feel like it can't sustain believability if they're constantly having to reset the pieces every season and come up with reasons that, certain people don't get killed right away and et cetera,
Yeah.
So I'm always weary to fully endorse it because I'm always like, okay, they should end it here. There should be no more, But I don't know. It's a hit show, so they're probably going to keep going. What?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But it's the same showrunner that did Supernatural that went on for like 13 seasons. I don't think he was a part of it the whole time, but yeah, there's certainly a weird feeling. Yeah, so like, I don't know. Like, as it stands now, I can't imagine The Boys being better in season 6 or 7 than it is now. I can see it losing a lot, but I can't see it improving a lot. You know what I mean? Yeah, what season are we on now for The Boys? It'll be 4 whenever the new season hits, whenever that is. We got done with 3. Okay. I think that I had read somewhere where there's supposed to be 5 seasons. So that would be good. Yeah. If they've got a plan, that makes me happy. But anyways, so I've always pretty much enjoyed The Boys thoroughly. When this got announced, it felt kind of weird because I think a lot of what makes The Boys so good is its satire and its send up of capitalism and social media and all kinds of, society in general, right? But the fact that it's like a massively successful show producing spin-offs that didn't need to exist and kind of only exist to gain Amazon more money felt a little weird. But at the same time, I like The Boys. So, especially when it's a show about capitalism and the evils of it. Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. So, I don't know. I didn't really like the idea of like a bunch of kids, like college kids, and following them and like their sex lives and their adolescent problems. That didn't super sound that interesting to me, really. But they made it and it's here. So I was going to watch it. Justin, you asked me about it a few days ago and you were like, are you going to watch this? And I was like, yeah, I mean, why not? How bad could it be? And I watched all 3 episodes and I liked it. I thought it was good. Now, what I will say is that after the first episode, I had no opinion whatsoever. Like I turned to my girlfriend and she was like, what'd you think? After we finished, episode 1. And I was like, I don't really have an opinion yet. There's nothing bad, but there's no hook yet. Right. And anyway, we went to dinner and we came back and I think we watched the last 2 episodes. So we didn't like binge them, but we watched them all throughout the course of a day. And by the end of the 3rd one, it's got enough like mystery set up and enough like things going on that are greater than just like the sex lives of teenagers. Right? So like Chris said, so it doesn't feel super WB. Yeah. I guess I should say, I don't think I said it, but I've only seen 2. So we're 1, 2, and 3 here. Yeah. So, and I can say with knowledge of episode 3 that where it ends and the potential for where it goes beyond here, I think will scratch more of The Boys' itch than it did initially in the first 2 episodes. But I also don't know either, and I don't want to claim any different. Like, I'm sure it'll still be
faithful to its premise, which is it's going to be about, soups who are in college and doing college problems,
Sure.
college situations. But it does seem to have a little bit more to offer than that, based at least in episode 3, as of episode 3. I will say I like the characters, like Justin said. I like the main character, Marie, I think is her name. And I like her friend, Emma, also known as Little Cricket.
Yeah.
I like her a lot. And there's a couple other characters that I really like a lot. And I like how, like The Boys, it uses a lot of talking about events in the past. Like the recent past, as if they're like really important things that you should remember. And a lot of the drama and situations come out of you having to pay attention to things that have already happened before the series even began, and conversations and who was talking to who and things like that. So yeah, I don't know. A success so far, but it's kind of a slow burn. So I would say definitely watch to episode 3, because that is what they intended to be the premiere, was the end of the 3rd episode. So I think that's where the hook really, really gets in you.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'll definitely keep going. I think it's been worthwhile so far, based on one episode.
Well, I feel like at this point, we have to finish it now because we've talked about it on this show. So we have to come back and talk about it.
We've already drawn our line in the sand.
Yeah.
There have been shows that we've talked about that I haven't finished.
That's true.
And I'm still mad about them.
Yeah.
No.
I don't remember what they are now, though.
Yeah, I don't really. Yeah.
Well, personally, I can think of like Foundation, the House of Dragons.
Hey, Foundation's still going.
I know.
House of Dragons still going. There's time.
Yeah, I don't think I ever finished Welcome to Wrexham because
Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah.
It is a new season of Rings of Power. That's the name.
Yeah,
of
Rings of Power.
Show.
Fair
Anyway,
enough on that one.
Of,
I literally just stopped watching after episode 3.
Same.
But I wasn't even one of the people that like hated it. I just didn't find enough to like about it.
Yeah, it's got to get you to go back and put in the effort to go back.
Yeah. If season 2 comes out and it's like critically well received, because I feel like it's going to get review bombed either way. So the audience perception will be impossible to determine at first, I think. But if it's critically well received, I will go back and power through season 1.
Yeah, I watched season 1. I finished it. It's not.
I've literally never heard you say a thing about it, so it must be great.
Yeah, you don't necessarily like. I've never been like, you guys have to watch this, because I know that it's not like. I don't regret watching it. But yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I was going to say there's a second season of Welcome to Wrexham if you want to catch up.
Oh, that's true.
It's
also,
airing currently. I think there's like 5 episodes out so far.
I've watched the second season of Foundation, and I highly encourage, especially Justin. Justin loves this kind of stuff, but the second season is so good.
I did hear that it got a lot better in season 2, and that does make me want to go back. Is season 2 done, or is it still going?
It's finished now.
So it ends well, and it actually is like.
I think so. I think
the whole time.
I mean, like with anything, there are drawbacks, but I think it's really well done. The problems with the first season, I think you can lay a lot of that at the feet of COVID and stuff like that happening. There are some silly moments in the first season, but I think even there's a episode with what is his name? Lee Pace that is really good. It's just kind of focused on his character, and so there are moments in the first season that are worth watching. Overall, maybe it's it's like a 5 out of 10 or something. But like, the second season I really like those. So
okay, well I'll catch up for you.
Oh, okay,
yeah, and I might finish season 1 and go from there. If Justin also sounds as enthusiastic as you do, then
okay.
Because I want to like it. I don't want to be like a bummer about this show. Like it's pretty. I like the cast. It
looks really, really good. Which show are we talking about? We're talking about the Foundation. Yeah.
Welcome to Wrexham.
Yeah. But it's probably maybe the best looking show that I've watched on TV, except for Rings of Power. Maybe that is in there somewhere. But Foundations looks amazing.
Ooh la la.
Cool.
All right. Any other thoughts about Gen V, though?
No. I look forward to watching more. I hope that it is able to maintain or get better, is what I would say.
Doesn't the new episode come out tomorrow night?
Is it tomorrow night? I don't know. I got back. I don't know when anything comes out.
I think it comes out on like Thursday evenings or something.
Yeah, Thursday evening. It's supposed to be Friday, but I think Amazon kind of drops them a little early.
Okay.
Sneaky.
Yeah, at least that's how they do The Boys. I don't know. I only watch these like on Sunday after. So I don't remember what day they premiered. But anyway, cool. Sounds like we're all going to keep watching.
Mm-hmm.
To be continued.
Yep.
All right. So, Chris, you're just dying to get it out. You can't stop squeezing it into conversations. You keep trying to wedge it in there. No, but for real, this sounds awesome. Why don't you tell us about this year's Fantastic Fest? How many days were you there? Did you stay in a hotel? Tell me all about it. What's going on?
Well, it's an 8-day event. The first day, so it's Thursday to Thursday. The first Thursday, you see like the opening night movie and one other movie, right? And there's like a opening night party that happens. It's a lot of fun.
Sweet.
But I actually kind of missed because I didn't get into the opening night party was the Toxic Avenger movie. And so I went to another movie because it sold out really quickly. And so when I got out of my movie, the party had already basically started, but they usually have like this crazy event that happens that everybody's like a part of. Anyways,
did people like the new Toxic Avenger?
I would say mild to yes, they liked it. But this is
a non-enthusiastic yes, yeah.
Yeah, and it's also the type of crowd that is all about, like trauma. That's the crowd that it is,
yeah.
So
the people who would be excited about a remake of Toxic Avenger, yeah.
And I don't think it has distribution yet, unless something's changed since it played, but it certainly did not when it premiered. So who knows? It'll probably be like a straight to, streaming situation for Toxic Avenger. But
that sounds right.
Yeah. But Elijah Wood was there, so I saw him in person as I walked by and was surprised to see Frodo.
Did you tell him that you finished Rings of Power?
I did. That show, like you weren't in. I finished it. Nobody liked it, but I finished it. I guess I'll tell you. So they have these things called secret screenings. I'm sure we talked about it last year, but they had 4 of them this year, and they were really great. I think like last year they had more headliners, like The Menu and what was the Colin Farrell movie? Brendan Gleeson last year. Banshees and Sharon. All those movies were kind of like the headliners. You knew about them before you went. This year, the headliners were all kind of hid behind the secret screenings. Saltburn, I got to see. It's the new movie from...
I really want to see that.
It is really, really good.
Emerald
Fennell. Yeah.
Fennell, yeah.
And Barry Keoghan is amazing in it. The guy that plays Elvis and Priscilla is also in it.
And Nate Jacobs from Euphoria. Yeah,
he is really good. It's a pretty horny movie. Barry Keoghan, those guys are not bad looking. And I look forward. These are like, I'm actually, these 2 movies I want to put a pin in because I want to talk to them more in depth with you guys as they come out here in the next couple months.
I've been seeing the trailer for Saltburn like everywhere in front of movies that I go see now, and it's a really cool trailer.
It was a real big surprise that it was playing, and I was really excited. So that was a lot of fun. And then the other one that I saw was Dream Scenario, starring Nicolas Cage.
How was that?
And that's the movie where Nicolas Cage shows up in people's dreams and becomes like a celebrity. I would also like to put a pin in that and talk to you guys more in depth. I liked it, parts of it, but I think because of the ending and stuff, maybe I'm a little bit more on the fence. I would like to talk to you guys about it.
Knowing you, that probably means it ends happy.
Yeah. So what is the deal? They're all happy. No, but both of those movies I really liked. I think are worth discussion, and I want to talk about them. I think Saltburn comes out in November, and the other one comes out in December, or vice versa, something like that. So, yeah, those were the 2 like kind of headliners that I really liked a lot. And then there's this a couple of movies that I want to point out that played like kind of they're the smaller ones. They probably don't have distribution yet. This one played at Cannes earlier this year. It's called Riddle of Fire. And it is just about the cutest movie I've ever seen. It's like Lord of the Rings meets Goonies type of thing.
Sweet. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, these three kids want to play like their PlayStation, and the mom has put a password on the TV. And so they ask their mom for the password, and she says, well, I'll give it to you, but you have to go get me a blueberry pie. And so on this quest, chaos ensues. The fun part about this movie is there's just three kids. They're not great actors, but they're all charming because it's like watching three kids play. Does that make sense? And be silly.
Sure.
And I really enjoyed it for that charm that it had there. One of the kids, and I don't know exactly how this happened. I heard an interview, but he got to the set, and everything he said you couldn't understand. And so the director was like, oh, man, what are we going to do? So they ended up subtitling everything he says. That kind of tells you what kind of... It's a goofy movie, because he's subtitled, he's got this weird... he says lines like, "Oh man, this tastes like the hot tub in Cabo." And you're like, "What are you talking about, kid?" So that's kind of the goofiness that's happening in this movie. I don't know if it has distribution yet, but
sounds like Little Rascals or something.
Yeah, it's that's definitely there, and there's like witches and stuff like that.
Witches.
It's a quest movie, so there's things to overcome, and
they go through like a little odyssey, if you will.
Yeah, it's like what I thought my my adventures were when I was like 10. I thought that they were these grand epic adventures when really I was just like riding my bicycle across the street. It's more like what you thought you're based on the movies that you'd watched. Anyways, so I really like that one. This other one that I really like, Strange Darling, is really good, and I know this one, or at least at the time, it did not have distribution because it had like a placeholder card. It was like a TBD studio. It came up on the card, but it's
nice.
a movie called Strange Darling, and I thought it's basically like two people in this movie. Maybe there's actually like what was the guy's name? Parmesan, Gene Parmesan. Is that
from Arrested Development?
Yeah.
What? Yeah, he was in Arrested Development. He plays a very much smaller part in this. Not Gene Parmesan. That's Gene Parmesan is the Harry
the Private
Winkler.
Eye.
Yeah.
Okay, who's the guy who has the Harry? And he was also in Better Call Saul. A really tall guy.
Oh yeah. Sitwell. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, he's in this. Is
Ed Begley Jr.
Ed Begley Jr. Thank you, Justin.
I was going with his Better Call Saul name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sitwell is his Arrested Development name.
Oh,
yeah.
That's right. I was getting them backwards.
Yeah. Anyways,
he's really good in this, but in a very much minor part. It is a movie told in 5 chapters, but like Pulp Fiction or something like that, they are told out of order. Your expectations, and it subverts everything. Like you're like, oh, I thought I knew this was going on, but it's actually this. And I really enjoyed the actors, the 2 main actors in this. I thought it was really good, and
just on brand for this episode.
Yeah, yes,
with the chapters.
Yeah, except for I guess Mishima is told in chronological order. But one last movie I'm just going to say, Jackdaw, I really enjoyed. It was like a action movie. It has what is her name? I should have looked this up first, but the guy from The Haunting of Hill House, he's got 3 names.
I don't know.
Are we supposed to be looking this up for you?
No, I'm looking it up. Oliver Jackson Cohen and Jenna Coleman are both in it. The Doctor Who, girl. But it's actually really good. It's an action movie, and there's not a lot of talking in it. It's not John Wick action level where it's just like a bunch of fighting the whole time, but it's more suspense, and he's riding around on his motorcycle. It's underneath they sometimes had descriptors on the movies, and the descriptor for this movie was motocross double cross, which I thought was fun. So that's kind of gives you an idea of what's going on in that movie. So yeah, I enjoyed those movies. I enjoyed the whole time. I mean, I saw like 28 movies. I saw The Creator is actually one of the ones. And The Creator was kind of like an iffy one because...
Did that release the same day for you guys that it did on wide release?
No, I think I saw it last Wednesday, and it came out like on Thursday or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So, or actually, I think I saw it I don't know. It doesn't matter. Everything. Yeah. That's the thing. You go to these film festivals, and you're seeing like 5 movies a day, and everything kind of just when I see one movie, like I walk out of the movie theater, I'm like, is it 10 years later? How many years later is this?
Yeah.
Because you go on this whole adventure, and when you're watching 5 movies a day, it just kind of like kills your perception of time. So like,
it's like an Inception when you go to like that beyond dream area
yeah,
and you live a whole life and then come back out. It's only been like 10 seconds.
That's kind of how it felt. Go ahead, Justin.
Especially when like a movie is out of order chronologically.
Yeah, I already can't tell
your sense of time is all messed up.
So I highly recommend it. I think that the other thing is there is every time you go to these things, there's a bunch of people. You spend a lot of time by yourself watching the movie, but in between movies, you talk to people. You have a group of friends that you hang out with or whatever that you've made at the festival. But like I would always ask new people like, oh, what's your favorite movie so far? And almost like to a person, I would hear like a different answer each time. So I think that this is either a really bad festival or is a really good one. Saltburn was a lot of people's favorites, but I think that that's a headliner type. To me, that's of course that is. It's the headliner. It's a big thing. But like when you talk about these older movies and They had some repertory screenings like Messiah of Evil and Centipede Horror. But when you talk about these movies and you get so many different reactions, you're like, oh, well, now I have to watch all these other movies that I didn't even get a chance to see because I was watching other movies. There's like 90 some movies that played at this festival. And I saw, 28? I think the max that you could see is 35. Like if you went to every single screening.
Is that possible?
Yeah. So like,
okay.
What I ended up doing, and I know people that are like hardcore, and they would go to every single screening. Like I would end up a lot of times skipping the midnight screening because I would end up falling asleep during the movies anyways if I stayed up all night. And so I was kind of trying. I was like, well, I can skip this movie or I can fall asleep during a movie tomorrow. Like that's kind of just how it works. I also drank so much caffeine that week; it was ridiculous. So I skipped some midnight screenings, and then. I kind of knew the fourth, it was Saw 10. And so me and the group of friends kind of skipped that. We went and got ramen and, we went to a tiki bar. It was really awesome. So, we had a good time with that. So, I kind of missed a couple of rounds due to those things. But, I think after this being my second year of a full festival, I think I've learned that like my limit is about 6 to 7 days of that much movie watching, and then I'm like, it could be the best movie ever. I'm just like, like I want to, but it's too much. I saw Eileen, and I'm putting a pin in that too. Eileen was kind of it played just regular in the festival. It's great. I think. No, it's great. I really liked it. And I would like to talk to you guys about that more too. So, do you guys know about Eileen?
Maybe. I don't think so.
So Eileen stars Anne Hathaway and Thomas and McKenzie. It's based on a book that I'm not familiar with, but it's basically Thomas and McKenzie. It's back like I would say like the 50s or the 60s. She's a woman coming of age, and then Anne Hathaway is a very well put together woman, and kind of changes Thomas and Mackenzie's life because she either wants to be her or she's in love with her, and they work at a prison. So it's really good. I at least for sure, Thomas Mackenzie and Anne Hathaway are both. Oh, and it also has Shea Whigham in it, who is also really great. So yeah, it's a really great movie. So I'm putting a pin in that one. So I think I've talked enough. Unless you guys have any questions, I think we can move on to Ahsoka. But yeah,
I have a question.
Okay.
Did anybody you meet and ask their favorite movie? Did anybody say Saw 10?
Well,
or Saw X?
Saw 10 actually did play like. It wasn't the last day of the festival, but it was the day before it came out. So I really think, and people,
Everybody skipped it and went had ramen.
well, that's why it was a secret screening, because that way you don't know what it is. But yes,
that's how they dupe you.
yeah, I don't
Is
think
there ever like an audible groan or like a "aw" whenever the secret screening is discovered, like in the audience?
there is, like, the third movie was a film by Luc Besson called Dogman, and I was not aware of it, that it was even made. And so people were a little bit surprised by it. There's not... The first two movies that I saw, there was no groans. There's like, oh, yes, I imagine with something like Saw 10, there's like a Facebook group called Fantastic Fiends, and people were not happy about Saw 10. The thing is, it doesn't matter. You go for a bunch of different movies, they're not all going to be your favorite. Like I watched, you watch 28 movies, you're not going to be a fan of them all. But especially if they don't have distribution, it's kind of like you don't. I mean, Saw 10, I think you can probably be negative about because you're punching up, right? As opposed to saying bad things about movies that don't have distribution, that don't have a lot of backing on them, type of thing. So.
Right. Yeah. That's why I tried to make a joke about that one.
Yeah. Yeah, people were not happy about Saw 10, specifically, is what I would say. Although I did see some people that really liked it. I've only seen the first Saw, so seeing Saw 10 seems like an insurmountable... Although I think it takes place after the second Saw, which I still haven't seen, but like...
Weird.
It just seems like a insurmountable
I don't remember how many Saws I've seen, but
yeah,
I tapped out long before.
I think I've seen 6 of them.
I've seen 5 or 6.
That's crazy. I would not expect that you'd have seen 6.
Yeah, I have I had a problem. Then I stopped. Obviously,
I saw.
Well, I remember once Mike and I wanted to go see a movie just because we didn't live in the same town, and I was visiting him, and so we were like, oh, let's just go see a movie. What's playing? And it was like High School Musical 3 or Saw 6. So I think we opted for High School Musical 3, but then we realized every other person going to that movie was like a 13-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And we felt weird, so we swapped to see Saw 6.
Man, I kind of remember that, but I would not have placed it as Saw 6.
I just remember very specifically we were ready for High School Musical 3, and we walked into the theater, and the whole place was full.
Yeah.
It was like a Friday night, the day the movie came out, and so there was like lines waiting to get into the theater of like 13 to 16-year-old girls, and we're like, nah,
yeah, never mind.
I want to be the only two like 20-ish year olds in the crowd.
Yeah.
Anyways,
all right.
Cool.
Anything else?
That's the last one I saw.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever. I enjoyed ramen, is what I'll say. The ramen was delicious. It was actually like right down the street from the Fantastic Fest. So I should have really, because usually you have about an hour between movies, a half hour to an hour. So you could run down to that ramen place really easy and eat lunch there.
Yeah, you should have been eating ramen all week.
Yeah, I could have been eating good.
Cool.
Delicious. Okay.
All right, guys. So that was my time at Fantastic Fest. But you know what I'm really excited about? I'm really excited about talking about Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters. Are you guys ready?
Yep.
Oh,
4
yes.
chronological chapters.
Chronological, baby.
You will know where you are and what time it is.
I don't know. It's still Mishima.
True. I didn't know what time it was.
I thought I was watching The Truman Show when I watched it.
Yeah. Anyways. You guys ready?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Let's go. Criterion review, Casually Criterion. That's what it's called. Mishima, Life in 4 Chapters.
He was an intellectual who advocated action. He was a rebel who fought for tradition. He was an artist who shocked the world. Francis Ford Coppola and George Lucas present a new film by Paul Schrader. Mishima. His writing shook the soul. His flamboyance captivated a generation. His vision challenged the conscience of his time. And on November 25th, 1970, his life became the ultimate expression of his art. Mishima.
All right, so as always with our Criterion films, we will not be doing our spoiler-free section up front that we do for the newer releases, so consider this your spoiler warning. We're going to jump straight into talking about Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters. Spoilers and all, this is your warning. Go watch the movie and come back if you want to listen.
Yeah, cool. All right, so Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters was directed by Paul Schrader. It stars Ken Ogata. The IMDb synopsis says, a fictionalized account in 4 chapters of the life of celebrated Japanese writer Yukio Mishima.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate, and I like it.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but I'm glad that this notates a fictionalized account.
Although I can't imagine watching this movie and not gleaning that, but...
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I looked up because I had the question come into my mind as I was watching, for sure.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if I really, through reading, like ascertained what's fiction and what isn't, but I can make some guesses.
Sure. Maybe you'll get a chance to. Maybe we'll record a podcast about it.
Yeah, I like it. Mike, this was your choice.
It
for
was
the Criterion Poll that won. Yeah. So, as is tradition, do you want to get us started?
Sure. Let's see. Where to begin? This film was not what I expected. Although, to be fair, I didn't really know what to expect exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that it feels pretty ambitious for a guy like Paul Schrader, who probably most famously known for Taxi Driver and Raging Bull being the writer of those 2 movies. But he has also directed and written many other movies himself. But anyways, in my opinion, this signifies probably Paul Schrader at his most ambitious, at least up to this point in his career, and I think maybe even after. Considering he didn't, or I don't think still doesn't speak Japanese.
Yeah.
My guess would be that the subject matter was probably like too perfect for him.
Yeah.
And we can get more into that later. But I think this movie has a really interesting structure. In my opinion, it feels very well shot. It has a great score. I think even my girlfriend, who was just like hanging around but not really paying attention to what I was watching, she even commented on the score at one point about how cool it was. So yeah, this movie didn't disappoint. I've been wanting to see this for like a really long time now. And I'm glad I can finally knock it off my endless list of movies that I still have yet to see. So, yeah, I think that's where I'll wrap it up. Very good. I don't know that it's great or perfect for me yet at this time, but it's something that I'll definitely revisit down the road, and I have been looking back on fondly. One of the good Paul Schrader films. So, yeah, Justin, why don't you go next?
Sure, yeah. So, I really didn't know a thing about this movie other than its sort of
in 4 chapters.
reputation, I guess. Yeah. I had a feeling we'd get 4 chapters out of it, and a life.
Yeah, 4 chapters about a life at least.
Yeah, but I heard it was good from multiple people, from people that I would say aren't really into Criterion Collection or into like art house movies. You know, they watched it in film school and were like, "Yeah, it's really good." So that's kind of what I've always heard about it, and so in some ways I expected it to be maybe a little more accessible and vibrant's not necessarily the right word because there are certainly vibrant sections of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I should have expected it to be a bit on the slower side, a bit more thoughtful. It being a Paul Schrader movie.
I was about to say, that's Paul Schrader's MO, is just approaching radical subject matter with a very non-judgmental and thoughtful lens.
Yeah. But I think what may have made those people say that it was great was, I think, some of the set pieces in the sections that are the portrayals of like scenes from his novels.
Yeah, the adaptations.
Yeah, because those are really colorful. Those are really interestingly shot, and the sets are colorful, and they move and they break away, and we do some interesting stuff. And it actually made me think of Asteroid City. I thought it was kind of interesting that I just watched that movie very recently, and then finally, after like probably a decade of knowing about Mishima and not watching it, I finally watched it so soon after watching Asteroid City. I always find that the way life works in that way to be kind of funny. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really interesting. The structure was, I guess, neat, for lack of a better word. I don't know that this movie has any sort of personal effect on me. And that's maybe where I find myself recognizing it's good, but at a distance from really loving it, or even having a ton of reaction to it or personal like feelings towards it, other than an appreciation of it from a technical standpoint and from the ambition and the idea of tackling this person in such a way. I find it more interesting to think about Paul Schrader and his technique and his the way that he chose to do this.
Right.
More interesting than the film itself. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like I didn't hate it, I didn't dislike it, and I thought it was good. But there's just not enough, like as a film, as an experience, to really, for me, that I love, if that makes sense.
Well, it's a bit of a head scratcher, right? Because he's not really a guy that can. I've seen the movie. I've read about this guy. I haven't really read any of his like extensive body of work, but he's sort of a tough egg to crack. You know, I don't really know how to feel about him, but yeah, I'm not too far from you. Although I think I'm more enthusiastic about the being curious of the, or I'm more satisfied with the head scratch at the end of it, right?
Yeah, it does feel like a film that, you know, maybe takes time to sit, and then also some research on your own,
right,
to really fully, I guess, appreciate it, or even like begin to comprehend it. And I did some reading, but not a lot. So
I wonder if you'd feel differently if you were around in '85 to watch it, and having been more closer to the incident, it probably would have been more talked about in pop culture than we're pretty distant from 1970, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. But anyway, Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, Chris.
There's a lot of stuff I agree with. First, I think the thing I'll start off with, the way this movie connected with me was the repeating mantra of art and action. You know, like he's like, art isn't enough. How do we get somebody to make action? And how do you combine those two things together? That's kind of where this movie got me, as far as like kind of an investment into it, if that makes sense. You know, like do the right thing. I feel like is a combination of art and action to a certain extent. Or you could even see like Spike Lee making that movie and saying something like, well, this is art, but it's not action. You know, if that makes sense. He hasn't combined those two things together. Anyways, so that's kind of what I found really interesting about this movie. It's funny that you said those interludes or like adaptations reminded you of Asteroid City. You know, the thing that popped into my mind was Beau is Afraid. You know, like going backwards.
Oh, yeah. The theater section, yes, for sure, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm mainly talking about. Where it's like the artificiality of it is what kind of reminded me of it. The other thing that's impossible not to connect, Truman Show being one of my favorite movies of all time, and the music. Philip Glass is the same music is used in the Truman Show as Truman is escaping from his, reality show, and it's used throughout the whole show. So I had this
It kind of reminds me of Dogma. Or Dogville, excuse me.
Oh, Dogville. I wonder if that's it. I don't remember the music for Dogville. I was like, Dogma.
Not the music, but like the artificiality of the set.
Oh yeah, that would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then what was the other movie that Nicole Kidman wasn't in? That Lars von
Manderley.
Yes, those two movies. It reminded me a lot of those during those sequences.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah. And so I feel like I brought this like baggage with the music, loving this music from the Truman Show into this movie, and I think it was almost used for the same like purpose to a certain extent as the Truman Show, because this music is like joyful and like it's the music feels like it's about struggling and then a breakthrough, like like escaping or a breakthrough of some kind, and like as all the chimes start cascading down. So there's like this real moment, and I think every time they use it, like one of the characters is having a breakthrough or is like realizing something, and I thought that was really well tied in together, from my perception at least. The other thing I really like about this movie, it doesn't really have anything to do with the movie, but is like putting the pieces together of Paul Schrader's like filmography, and like, and maybe this isn't the best thing to do, but like understanding Paul Schrader as an artist better. All his like main movies are like about a guy, writing lonely, like in a room, and just like, and believing in some kind of like, I think you said something about it earlier, Mike, like in a dogma, you said that, but like in some sort of belief, and willing to put everything on the line for that belief, whether it's Raging Bull, Card Counter is similar, but what is the other one?
First Reformed, Taxi Driver.
Yeah, all of those are like, so it's really interesting to see Paul Schrader as like dealing with his like common problems that he always has, like that he's always dealing with.
Right. And
I think this may even be like, this is probably his most ambitious version of that, for sure. So I really enjoyed this. And I think I connected with it a little bit more than Justin, just with the art and action. It made me, like wonder, as somebody that's like acted or whatever, I certainly have not motivated anybody to do anything, but like if you put art out there but you want action, like how do you converge those two things? Anyways, I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Well, to jump off what you were mentioning earlier, yeah, Paul Schrader seems to be sort of, I guess, drawn to or inspired by, or whatever you want to call it. He seems to be gravitating towards characters that become radicalized over the course of the story. But as is the case with, a lot of the other movies we mentioned earlier, this seems to me like more of a front. Like their radicalizations are usually what they're hiding behind, because they feel like they are an outcast in some kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mishima is, definitely portrayed that way. I actually listened to an interview of Paul Schrader talking about Mishima. And he said that he kind of envisioned Mishima as a guy who wore lots of masks.
Sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the masks never crossed. He just had very particular personalities that he showed different people. But he speculates that underneath the mask there was just a big void. And I think if you look back on the movie with that in mind, I think it all starts to kind of add up into, and I know this is a real person and real events that it's based on, but it's a fictionalized version, so, this is a character study for all intents and purposes, right?
Right.
And so if you want to crack that egg, if you want to get to this character, I think that that's an interesting lens to approach this from, because that is what Paul Schrader was doing.
Yeah. I mean, I think I picked up on some of that in the earlier sections, and I think connecting it to his
works,
radicalization and his plan at the end maybe eluded me some.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that was something
definitely
that I was kind of not quite connecting with, but I read up a little bit on it. His overall like mantra that he was going for.
Yeah, I mean, I read some stuff about that he kind of had this idea of returning to like this sort of like samurai code and this sort of like feudal Japan, and wanting to get rid of democracy and bring the emperor back into power.
Yeah, it's crazy. He seemed to want to revive a lot of the samurai traditions that he felt, I think, gave a certain sense of honor that didn't exist as Japan started to become
more Western.
More westernized, yeah, exactly. And I think he felt that by extension, in his eyes, not only its honor, but its identity. You know?
Japan's identity?
Right.
Yeah, he talks about that in the movie. Like, Japan's soul, they're losing it, you know.
Yeah.
And identity, you know, can be tied in there.
Identity, soul. Yeah, I mean...
Yeah. Well, like, I guess I was connecting it, and maybe this is on my mind quite a bit because, you know, the reason we chose this, the theme was Pride Month.
We weren't going to mention that because it's been so long since Pride Month. Chris and I were talking about that before you got on.
Oh, whoops.
It's okay.
The cat's out of the bag.
Well, I can rephrase if you want to edit it out.
No, that's okay.
Or just say, okay. Well, yeah, so we got delayed on this episode by a lot of summer stuff. But the LGBTQ aspect of this movie was at the forefront of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm spent a lot of time trying to connect the dots. And I guess I don't know how much this is influenced by personal experience or the movie itself, but I was connecting the dots in the way of like this sort of overly idealization of like the samurai code or whatever, or of you know, this seppuku. What is
seppuku?
Seppuku. Yeah.
Seppuku.
Seppuku. Yeah, I knew I wasn't saying it right.
Yeah, I was not either. But sort of like glamorization of the old way and the way things used to be and whatnot just feels like modern things I've seen of like that sort of like cover up of those sort of like gay feelings. Because like I'm sure at the time too, it was probably more of a shameful thing for him. It's less accepted than it is now, you know?
Sure.
Yeah. Apparently his wife took issue with the homosexual elements of this movie.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah. Can't say that I'm not surprised about that, or can't say that I'm surprised about that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess then maybe it's up for debate about whether or not that was the fictionalized part.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, maybe. At least it's not something that his wife, or at least society in Japan, was super psyched about. This movie was apparently pretty controversial in Japan.
Did I say it was banned and is still banned?
Is it still banned?
I think it might still be banned, although I'm sure it's a lot harder to ban things these days.
Yeah, that'd be pretty crazy if it's still banned.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought I saw that it still is, but the ban was never lifted.
Oh, that could be.
Maybe nobody cares anymore. Yeah. But anyways, I did find it interesting, like this scene where he when he's younger and he sees the painting of like the person
with the arrows
stabbed with like the arrows or whatever, as both a spark of like the homosexual or bisexual feelings and this fascination with beauty and perfection and destruction. It was very cool.
Yeah.
It's an interesting moment.
I did look it up. So apparently it was banned in 1985, and the ban has never been lifted. So what you said was correct. So it's effectively still banned, but they're not going to. I don't even know what that means. Like, are they going to arrest you if you watch it?
No one's getting arrested over this movie, I don't think.
Yeah. And probably just to lift the ban would call more attention to it.
Sure,
So if there's anybody that doesn't want it to be acknowledged still,
Yeah.
might as well just let it be forgotten.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Yeah.
But then, so like later in the movie, we have that scene of him done up where he's like in the tree and mostly naked with like arrow wounds.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to say about it.
Okay, I thought you were building to a point. Yeah, no,
Nope.
Yeah, those parts were actually pretty cool. This movie was more stylized than I guess I didn't realize Paul Schrader had that side in him.
Yeah.
Right? Because of the Paul Schrader movies that I've seen that he's directed, which is, in the grand scheme of all the movies he's done, not that many.
Limited, yes.
Yeah.
Especially for me.
But what I have seen doesn't seem to have this sort of surreal flair going on. And this movie, like the way it plays with color and artificiality of sets, and when to use color, when to use black and white, when to use really vivid over-the-top colors,
Mm-hmm.
All of those things, I think, were not things I was expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like
Going into this
the
film.
last day of his life section of the movie felt the most Paul Schrader to me, and it also just has the most boring visuals, for lack of a better word, or just like bland visuals, intentionally so.
Just a pretty straightforward-looking movie.
The color's pretty natural, and I think the lighting is not overly dramatic. The sets aren't anything special, or locations aren't anything like overly pretty or special. So like in comparison to the what I think was like really nice looking black and white and over the top adaptations that are really stylized and colorful and pretty to look at, like that last day feels so drab.
Yeah.
Every time we cut to it.
Well, there's a certain amount of dread that it induces as well. The way it's spread out over all chapters, like we get a little bit of it and then it moves on, to whatever else that chapter is going to be about. So I enjoy the way it was sprinkled out and kind of, it never lets you forget what's coming, right?
Yeah, what we're working towards.
Right. And another thing that Paul Schrader actually mentioned in that interview was how, eventually as he got older, with his art didn't do it for him anymore, basically. And so his death had to be an art of itself, right? It had to be like an artful gesture, a grand gesture of sorts.
Action. It had to be action.
Yeah, action, where words had failed him previously because he was, I guess, bored of that. And this guy had been famous for a long time. He got famous very young.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But anyway.
What if he's
Paul
like
Schrader,
Orson Welles, like the Japanese Orson Welles? Anyways.
Yeah, kind of, I guess, but for writers.
Yeah.
But anyway, what he was saying basically was that as he got older and art, didn't do it for him and he wanted this grand gesture, he sort of started embracing and becoming and making his own life into his characters, basically. And I think that thesis you could definitely see Paul Schrader working with in the movie, right? With selecting these particular works to adapt and these particular scenes to adapt.
Connecting
Within
him
the
to his
movie,
life.
I think that you're able to see exactly what Paul Schrader is proposing to us here. Now, I don't know if that's accurate to the real guy because, like I said, I'm pretty ignorant to like the real Yukio Mishima, right? But I like that as a movie structure and as a entry point to approach this story.
Well, I think it works as a movie. I always have a difficult. This is a biopic, right? Like, but it's a biopic I like because of the way that's done.
But in that structure, though, like it works as a movie, and in that structure of not trying to be too faithful,
yeah,
I think it works better as a biopic that way. But is it more accurate? I don't know. Does that matter in a biopic? Accuracy.
Yeah.
Well,
I would say that makes it work better as a movie than a biopic.
Yeah.
Because then it actually concentrates on its themes versus concentrates on accuracy.
Yeah, and it's interesting because of my familiarity being zero with Mishima, maybe that part of it doesn't matter as much to me, right? Like I don't really care about the accuracy because I don't have any baseline for it, right? But like if they made like some author I really like I'd be like, no, that's not what happened. I don't know. But
I think
Dr. Seuss.
it kind of depends, right? Because we see movies like that all the time, and I think as long as they're upfront about it being a fiction, primarily, I don't think it matters. Because like, look at The Social Network. Everyone loves that movie.
Sure.
And I don't think David Fincher or Aaron Sorkin have ever pretended like it was.
Well, and the thing that does, and I'm thinking that Mishima does, is it kind of captures the themes of somebody's life, or the themes of the feeling of that person making Facebook, or so that's really what's. And at that point, it's not even about Mishima; it's about Paul Schrader. It's about Mishima through Paul Schrader's eyes.
Yeah, it's about Mishima as understood by Paul Schrader.
Yes, and I think that really. Like something like Elvis is almost more of a lie, even though maybe Elvis is the wrong, like the Garland movie, Judy Garland, but those movies are more of a lie because they're presenting as truth because they're like, these are things that actually happened, but we are not like, this is Judy Garland through the eyes of whoever the director was of that, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I have another question for you guys too, unless you have more to say on this.
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I can't help but think, Paul Schrader's not Japanese, and I think you kind of brought this up before, Mike. How do we feel about Paul Schrader telling a Japanese story, or is this more like Paul Schrader telling a Schrader story that just happens to be Japanese? Because we've talked about the themes that run throughout Paul Schrader's career, and this is definitely falls into that basket. So how do we feel about this?
Justin?
Didn't he so he co-wrote with his brother and his brother's wife, which I'm going to attempt the pronunciation, but Chieko Schrader, who is I think Japanese.
Okay.
And they helped with like the translation.
Yeah,
and whatnot.
At least there's that. Yeah,
there's input.
So here's the thing.
Potentially,
I understand this modern day urge to be like you have to be of this culture or of this creed or whatever you want to call it to tell stories involving characters like that. I know that's a really modern day. Yeah, that's the way things should be done. But art is art, right? And I don't think. I think it's pretty interesting whenever directors, like foreign directors, come over here and try to tell stories set in America about Americans.
Sure.
I find that fascinating. There's lots of insights that maybe they have that we're too close to or that an American director wouldn't have. There's too much value to be mined in that. Does that make it less valuable than art made by people of that country? Maybe to them, if that's your opinion, sure. But I like this idea that cinema is a worldwide language.
Sure.
And if you have an observation or a point of view, no one should stop you from making your art. And if someone doesn't like it or thinks that you completely missed the mark or that like it's laughable that your interpretation of something that you could have no idea about, then, make a better movie.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think.
I mean,
okay.
I agree. I agree that it's different points of view are okay, and like if you have a point of view on something,
right?
And I don't think this movie does this, but it could get into problematic if you've got malice or
sure, yeah,
poor intentions, right? But
yeah,
I don't think that's
the caveat.
This at all.
Yeah, with the caveat that you shouldn't go just bashing things you don't understand or making
good
making
intentions.
like mean spirited bad faith calls. But I didn't get the vibe that Paul Schrader was doing that.
Yeah.
No, and I don't know. Good intentions is maybe the right term, but because obviously it offended people from Japan because they banned it.
It seemed like Mishima himself offended people from Japan, and this is me. Maybe I should have done a little bit more research, but like coming to it with like little to no understanding of Mishima in his original Japanese, culture and like. But yes, it seemed like he was on the outside in Japan, anyways. At least towards the end of his life.
And I think if your intentions are good and like you're putting in the time, like this isn't like me trying to write this movie, right? Like, and I had no idea who.
Sure, yeah, we're just gonna write a
Mishima was. Like, it's not that. Like, he's got an interest and a fascination and can research it, right?
But
so,
sometimes a good
okay.
criticism is a valid thing, though, right? Like,
sure, yeah.
Like, look at Paul Verhoeven and Starship Troopers, right? Like, he's making a lot of points on that aren't kind, but that doesn't mean he shouldn't make them. So I think it's a slippery slope, like there's no right answer or like one size fits all for that,
sure.
To answer Chris's question.
Yeah, Lars von Trier, I think, fits into that box, like...
Yeah, like look at the movie I mentioned earlier, Dogville. Like that is not a kind view of America, and I think that movie's really cool.
Sure,
and I dig it. So
yeah, I guess like you made the point of like ill-informed or like something you don't know, you don't know anything about, and you're just being like angry and rude for no reason. I guess.
Yeah,
but
if you're just making
like
everyone look
probably
stupid
has,
or something, I don't know. I don't know.
If you're like making fun or something, I don't know. I don't necessarily have a problem with it.
Yeah,
it's the short answer of the long conversation.
I do feel like it's important to talk about it, because of that. Because I don't know, I feel like it's important because just to mention that because it is weird. I am under the impression this isn't necessarily. It is a Japanese movie or Japanese. It's about Japanese people, right? But it falls more under the Paul Schrader line of like it's a Paul Schrader story because those characters are Paul Schrader characters. Like you can look throughout all, his filmography and you can definitely put Mishima into that. Like he's there with Ethan Hawke in First Reformed and Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver. They're very similar, right?
Sure.
So
yeah.
Now like I think if he was like commenting on, I mean, I guess we just watched Hiroshima Mon Amour earlier this year, and that is a movie, as I recall, it was a French movie that wasn't. It was about Japan and the Hiroshima bomb, but it wasn't, So it's an interesting conversation to be had, and I think I agree with you, Mike. I think that there's like, in a perfect world, when people are getting representation, it shouldn't matter who's doing what, like. You can tell whatever story you want, but if there's like a problem with like Japanese people are just not getting enough representation anyways, or Asian people, like it's weird that Paul Schrader would be telling the story. Of course, this is in the 80s. That's all that was happening back then. It's like weird that like Oliver Stone and they were telling the Asian stories as opposed to, anyways.
Right. Well, it's like I think just yesterday and today people were talking about this. One of my most anticipated films, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Sure, yeah.
Scorsese said that he realized he was making a film about all the white guys, and it's about the Osage Native Americans getting murdered, the Osage tribe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he went back to the drawing board and kind of rewrote the script to give more of a voice to, the Native Americans who were otherwise underrepresented in a film kind of about them, so
and I think
there's lessons to be learned, and there's a right way to approach it. And it seems to have been a popular move because people are seemingly pretty happy about that. So, I don't know. Yeah. There's no right answer, and I'm sure in 10, 15 years as the cultural conversation changes, who knows what the common opinion will be on who's allowed to do what when it comes to art.
Our opinions, like how our opinions will change. Because I'm open to my opinion changing as well.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. And in terms of like cultural cultural appropriation. I think I saw this movie had a budget of like $10 million and it made like $500,000.
Nobody saw it.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Produced
money
by
lost.
Lucas. It's a Lucasfilm movie. That's so crazy.
Yeah. Francis Ford Coppola.
That's how
is
it
a
ties in with
producer.
Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. But anyways, do we have anything else on Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters?
No, I don't.
No, I don't. I feel like I watched a great movie that just kind of missed me, and maybe I'll find it.
Yeah. You'll find your way to
as
it.
I
maybe.
think about it and dwell on it more. Yeah. Maybe it's just too soon.
We should do rewatches and just a whole separate podcast where we rewatch movies that we've already seen to see what
There we
we
go.
feel.
That'll
about
be interesting.
them. Yeah.
What if we do one where we re-listen to our
Oh
episodes
no,
and talk about
God, I don't want to do
our
that.
opinions, how they've changed?
Yeah. Well, okay, we could do
Okay.
that. That would make sense, but I don't want to listen to myself talk.
I'll listen to it and sum up your
Too bad.
opinions for you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll be like,
Yeah.
here's where you make jokes.
That's the whole episode. This is another dumb
Still more
joke by
jokes.
Chris.
Okay. Here's your opinion. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so moving on, we need to choose our next Criterion film. And as we've stated previously, we're each going to pick a film based on a theme, put it up on a poll on our X/Twitter account. So, Chris, actually, Mike, I don't know which one of you chose this theme, but
It was
whoever
Chris's
did that-
idea. And
Okay,
I
Chris.
immediately seized on it.
yeah. Yeah, I know you supported it, trust me.
Yeah, so
Because there was no deliberation.
No,
You
there was
just...
there's
Yeah,
not
you
even
just
a
put it in
moment's
there.
hesitation.
So, okay, Chris, what is this theme?
well, it's funny that we mentioned Killers of the Flower Moon because that ties into our theme. It's Martin Scorsese. I don't think we've done
Yay!
hooray! I don't think we've done a Criterion Scorsese. We've done like the
Well, we
Irishman.
have, but it wasn't a Criterion at the time.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right. So we
Upon
did do The
release.
Irishman, which became Criterion, but that was just because through the natural order of things we covered it. So yeah, we are doing Scorsese films that are in the collection. I think we are removing The Irishman since we've already talked about it, and so that
Yes,
leaves
not in
a few
contention.
left. Mainly his early works. So I'm excited about it, and I guess I'll just go ahead and start with mine. Is one that I haven't seen. It is The Age of Innocence. So I would like to close that gap on Scorsese's movie that I haven't seen. So all the rest I think I've seen, to be honest.
Daniel Day-Lewis, Michelle Pfeiffer. Good
Yeah,
movie.
Yeah.
Innocence.
Yeah, it seems so different, and maybe this is why I haven't watched it, but like,
You're like, I want the age of non-innocence. This
I want
sounds
the age
boring.
of Goodfellas. Where there's knifing and backstabbing.
The age of
going on.
guilt.
Yeah, the age of guilt.
I'm trying to think of the
Anyways.
opposite of innocence.
So
Yeah.
that's my pick. Mike, what is yours?
All right, so I will choose a film that is also written by Paul Schrader and directed by one Martin Scorsese, and that is The Last Temptation of Christ.
Speaking of banned movies,
Yeah, speaking of movies that were written by Paul Schrader that are controversial.
every movie he's made. He wished.
But yeah, no,
Just
Last
about.
Temptation of
Cool.
Christ. I've only seen this once, and it was very good. I remember. Harvey Keitel, Willem Dafoe, others,
Yeah.
I'm excited. Hopefully to
Yeah,
watch it.
I've seen this once too, and it was, I would say, close to, but not before. I had completely detransitioned out of Christianity, So I am very curious to rewatch this one now.
Yeah, me
as I
too.
am quite far removed.
Yeah, no, I was already pretty far removed when I watched it, but that's something that I struggled with in Scorsese's silence, was his very Christian point of view on things. And so I want to go back to this one and see if maybe I feel the same about it or less so, or more so,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious what my reaction will be
I really like this movie.
if it wins.
But yeah. Anyways, so Justin, what's yours?
Mine is another Paul Schrader written, Scorsese directed
Oh, no.
movie, which is kind of hard to avoid, to be honest.
Especially in his early work. Yeah.
In Scorsese's that are only on Criterion, but it's Raging Bull, which you might know, there's a scene in Christopher Guest Waiting for Guffman where a character auditions with a scene from Raging Bull. He auditions for the sesquicentennial play that they're putting on. That you might have heard of Raging Bull from that.
Maybe. Yeah, that's this movie's claim to fame.
Yeah, probably.
Yes.
Anyways, yeah, no, this is another one I've only seen once. It's been a long time, but I do have the 4K Criterion version, so I'm also choosing it for that reason, so that it's a good excuse to bust out that 4K.
Well, you know what? I bet yours will win.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Raging
sure?
Bull is gonna. Last Temptation.
I'd put it all on Age of Innocence if I were you.
Yeah,
I think that has the least opportunity to win. But
Yeah, that's the joke.
Oh.
Are you making fun of my pick? You son of a gun.
Yeah.
No, I would never.
I would never.
Just the accessibility of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, so those choices again are Mike with The Last Temptation of Christ.
Mhm.
I chose Raging Bull. Chris chose The Age of Innocence, and that is that poll. If you're listening to this, it will be up on our Twitter account.
X.
For
Twitter.
a few days. X account. X Twitter X. Anything else for this episode? Or are we
No,
done?
I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, listener, for listening. As always, thank you, Jake Wagner-Russell, for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, go to soundcloud.com/bobscotch.
All right, like, subscribe, stay tuned to this feed. Our next episode is undecided, but it will happen. So,
Yeah, we don't know what yet. Maybe it'll be 2.5 hours on episode 6 of Ahsoka.
yeah,
Yeah.
we could fill that time.
All right, guys.
Don't tempt me.
Thanks so much for listening. Watch Ahsoka. It's pretty good. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.